Hello Fabrication Nation, thanks for joining me again. Today I'm going to do some work on the Monarch, specifically on the chuck. I'm going to get the chuck off this machine back here, disassemble it, and just give it a good cleaning, do some preventative maintenance on it, and make sure that it's good to go for my first job. Let's take a look at the chuck that's on the Monarch. Here is the chuck on the Monarch. This is a 4-jaw chuck, and this thing is beefy. It's one of the largest chucks I think I've seen, not in diameter, but just in the width of this chuck and the build of this chuck. This thing is designed to cut some serious metal. So right off the bat, a few things that I noticed is the locking style on the back plate of this chuck, and I believe it has 6 of these locking nuts here. Also, what I noticed, you don't have a standard chuck key here. This is a hex design, which is different than your square design. So first I got a 3/4 inch socket adapter and tried to stick it in here, and it didn't fit. So now I'm going to have to figure out what to do about getting these jaws off, because this machine didn't come with a chuck key. Next thing is, how do you lift this monster? So if you spin it around, you've got this bolt hole here, and what this is for is to insert a lifting device. So I don't have a lifting device for this either. I did a little bit of searching online. I couldn't find a chuck key that was readily available. Granted, I didn't look that hard. I'm sure I could find something if I tried hard enough. But I came to the conclusion that a chuck key of this size is probably going to cost me a little bit, and I'd rather just build it myself. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some hex stock here and build a chuck key for myself. I'm going to run to the local software store and buy me a lifting eye for this stud hole. So I'm going to run and do that, and I'll be back in a minute.
Going home, it's 6 in the morning. This house is bumping, trying to get the friction on. We ain't going home, even when the lights come on. This house is bumping, banging, still going strong.
Alright, I made it back from the local software store. Yes, that's right, it's a software store because it's just so hard to find real quality tools these days, and you usually just can't get it from the big box stores. So I ended up making several trips. I got all this stuff here, and I had to go to about 4 different stores to get everything I needed to build the chuck key and to disassemble this chuck. So right off the bat, you can see this big stinking Allen wrench here. I went to the local fastener supply, was able to pick this thing up for about $11. What I'm going to end up doing is chopping it up and using it as needed. I think for right now I'm going to build a temporary key to get me through the job, and later on down the road I'll build an actual chuck key. So the funny thing is that I got to have a chuck key to get the chuck operational, but I need the chuck operational so that I could build me a chuck key. So you can't have one without the other. So to build the temporary key, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece off of this, and I've got this impact socket that I got from Sears, and it fits. It's a 3/4 socket, and it fits perfectly right here. And I'm going to cut off about 6 inches here. I need about 6 inches clearance to fit on the chuck. and that includes the socket. So it may not be exactly 6 inches, but it'll have a good stick out. So that's going to be the first project in order to do the maintenance on this chuck. So at Sears, I couldn't get a lifting eye, and I went to Ace Hardware, and they didn't have the right size. They had the size just below this. This is a 3/4 inch lifting eye. So I ended up picking this lifting eye up at the local Lumber 2. While I was at Ace, I found this hex socket set here, and this is essentially what I'm building. And if you notice, I'll go ahead and take this one apart. It's got a set screw that holds the hex stock in place. So there's the set screw there. And this hex stock just pulls right out. You can see that the socket is actually threaded. And the hex stock here has got a recess in it so that the set screw can grab it. So it's a little bit different design than what I'm going to do here. If you notice, the thickness of that is much thicker than a socket. You really get some good torque. If you look at the difference on this one, I'm going to lose a little bit of strength because of the wall on this socket here. And you look at the wall on this hex fitting. But this is impact quality grade, so it should be just fine. All right, before I get to chopping and drilling things up, let's make sure that this stuff is going to work. Okay, we'll see if our 3/4 inch Allen wrench will fit, and there it is, it fits. Now these jaws are a little tight. That's why I want to disassemble this to get these off, get any chips out of the chuck, get any dirt out of it, re-grease it, make sure everything fits back together good. So my chuck key's working good. Now we'll try my eye bolt. Okay, eye bolt fits. I can use this nut here to lock it down in place. And that's how we'll lift it off. Okay, first thing I got to do is determine where I need to cut a piece of this stock off. So those jaws are about 6 inches long, and I need to be able to clear them so that they can back all the way out. So when I insert this into the socket, it doesn't go all the way back. And what I want to do is give myself 6 inch clearance from the back of the socket to where I need to cut the Allen wrench. So I've got 6 inches right here. What I think I want to do is just go ahead and give myself an extra inch just to make sure it doesn't get caught up on anything. So I got that marked, and that comes out to making a 5-inch cut. So now I'll take it over to the bandsaw and we'll make a 5-inch cut. doesn't get much nicer than that. Got just that little tab left right there at the bottom of the cut, but look how nice that cut comes out. All right, now I'm going to deburr this hex stock. Okay, fits in there nicely. We're right at 7 inches. Next step is to drill and tap a hole into the socket. So I'm gonna go just over a 1/2 inch from the bottom for the set screw. Okay, I got my homemade V-block here. I'm going to use to hold the socket in place. Okay, I got a nice center punch right there in the middle of the socket on the flat end on the back side of the socket so that I don't mess up the logo there. Okay, first thing I want to do is I want to drill a pilot hole. I'm going to use my strong hand clamp to keep it affixed to the block. All right, I got my pilot hole. While I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and do a center drill in the stock here. And that gives me a good reference hole on the hex stock there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open that hole up just a little bit bigger so that the set screw has something to bite into. I got my pilot hole drilled. Now I'm going to go in and open this up with the number 3 drill. That's the drill size that's called for this set screw. It's a 1/4 28. And what that means is it's a 1/4 inch diameter, 28 threads per inch. Once I get that drilled, I'll tap it with this 1/4 28 tap. So to drill this, I'm going to use my favorite tool in the shop, and that's my Wilton drill press. And that's right over here. So here is my Wilton drill press. And it's kind of cluttered over here. I've got some things in the way, but I'm just going to drill one hole, so it'll be fine. On my drill press, I have this Jacobs quick release, and so how this works is rather than using a chuck key, you just spin it by hand and it'll release your drill bit. I'm going to go ahead and put my starting drill bit in here to center up this socket. Okay, I got my drill bit. Stick it in place, and just tighten by hand, and that's it. So now I'm going to come down and use this to center up my socket. Now I'm ready to open the hole up. Okay, I put the socket all the way down to the bottom of the vise just to get a better grip on it. We got it drilled all the way through. I'm going to use a larger drill bit and chamfer the top edge of this. Okay, got a nice chamfer on the hole, drill through. A little tight, I'm gonna have to go a little bit more. And I think that's about where I want it. All right, let's go back to the table and start setting up for the hex stock. All right, I got my hex stock here, and all I want to do with this is just put a little dimple in it, a little bit wider than what I have here. Got that done. All right, I got all the pieces to the puzzle. Got my stock, got it cut, got it drilled, and I got my socket. I got it drilled and tapped with the set screw. So the idea is that that set screw will sit right in this dimple and keep it from moving side to side. And there it is. There's my new Chucky. I'll be using my Hilti impact to get the torque that I need. All right, let's go test it out. All right, I broke away for a minute because that was a little bit more work than I anticipated. But I got everything greased up with some WD-40. I let it set for a minute, and now I'm down to my last jaw. All right, that worked well. I'm pretty happy with this thing. This is probably going to end up becoming my go-to Chucky, just because 6 inches of that jaw, moving that up and down, that's a lot to do by hand. And you got to be careful with how tight you get the chuck, but as long as you're careful with that, this thing sure makes a quick work out of it. All right, much better. When you have a precision fit like that, just a little bit of surface rust could really make things difficult. So I think that's all it was just a little bit of surface rust. You break some of that free and then it just comes right out. All right, there's the chuck without any teeth. So just not much to it. All right, here's all the jaws lined up. We got them out and ready to get those clean. All right, well, I think that's a day's work, so I'm gonna wrap it up and then get started on the chuck again tomorrow. Again, here's my makeshift chuck key, and I'm really happy with it. It worked really well, and then, like I said, it's probably gonna be my go-to. What I have left, this 3/4 inch Allen wrench is starting to look like more of a standard size now, but this is what I got left, and later on I'm going to go ahead and cut another piece off of this and build a handheld chuck key out of it. And I'll still have enough left here. I could probably do some other things with it, so we'll see. That'll be a future project. Thanks for watching Fabrication Nation. And stay tuned for Chucky Part 2.